So we've come to the end of the road. I also had really bad fatigue as soon as I entered the third trimester. She gets the ultrasound equipment, and we find out that baby girl was breached. And my blood pressure had risen a little bit more. So if you guys want to know how the last 10 weeks of my pregnancy went, then keep on watching. Also, I want to make sure you guys subscribe and join the beauty club. Love to have you guys here. You know, we're just catching up, putting on all the old content, you know, just keeping it going and keeping it moving. So make sure you hit the bell button so you get notifications when I upload. And yeah, just stay up to date with the YouTube. And speaking of staying up to date, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm on all those platforms, just chatting it up and having a good old time. So yeah, come to find me over there, and I'll see you guys over there. Okay, let's get on with this update. Sorry, I had to leave for a second and take care of baby, but I'm back. Because of this, because of my blood pressure being higher, because of there being a small amount of protein in my urine, my doctor did not want to play around. She said, you do not have preeclampsia. She settled me on that. But she's like, I want you to go get monitored, and I want you to wait in labor and delivery, and let's see if your blood pressure goes back down. So we went. I got my blood drawn. The person who tried to do it twice failed. And so thankfully someone else came and did it. This was also the hospital where my doctor works that I was supposed to deliver at. And so my doctor came in later. It was kind of at the end of her work day. Checked my blood pressure, and it had decreased, but not enough. And so I believe it was still like in the 140s. So it was like 140 or something. So it was lower, but it still was not at a number she was not comfortable with, and honestly I wasn't comfortable with. So she admitted me to labor and delivery. And something too I want to note is that hypertension runs in my family, specifically maternal. On my mom's side, both my grandmother, my mom's mom, and my mom have had hypertension, and with her doctors she's kind of noticed that it correlates with weight. And so the more weight that both of them have had, the higher their hypertension, and as their weight decreased, their hypertension went back to normal. And so specifically with my grandmother, she was on medication for hypertension, got off of it because she lost a lot of weight. We changed her eating habits and her diet, lost a lot of weight, and we had to stop giving her the medication and everything. So that was good to know. And the same thing with my mother. I just know I had that in my family history, and so looking back at it, I'm not really surprised about me getting hypertension because I had hit that 200 point. I think I was actually around like 210 or so these last few weeks of pregnancy, and so my body was just, and I've never been that weight before. And I could feel it. I knew my body was just like doing a lot, and it was a lot of work. So either way, I was admitted that Friday night, so it was September 20th. I was admitted to the hospital. My baby was monitored. I was monitored. I was put on an IV, put on fluids, because drinking water specifically and rinsing out your body, your kidneys love water, and just rinsing that out helps to lower hypertension, which it actually did. And basically I was just given that night to rest, and we were gonna start over the weekend getting me induced. My bad, that Friday was the 21st, the Saturday was the 22nd. And I had already mentioned that I had got my blood drawn, and I, again, didn't hear the results from that, but I got my blood drawn the next day. And, you know, because as the story goes on, I don't think anything was wrong with my blood, so I just looked it up. They also draw your blood to see if you have preeclampsia because of uric acid. And so I got my blood drawn that day, and I got my blood drawn Saturday. I didn't get it drawn Sunday, so I'm guessing I did not have any in my blood, and that they took it all those days just to make sure that everything was okay. I also had my blood drawn when I did the 24-hour urine test too. So I think they kind of were just comparing my levels to the ones before. I don't know if you naturally have uric acid in your body. I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, but yes, things were okay in that area to my knowledge. So Friday I was allowed to rest, given IV fluids, and then on Saturday we were going to start with being induced. And so there are different types of inductions. There's the one that's typical, that you see often, is Pitocin, that's through the IV, and there's also one called Miso, and that one is a little pill that you can take orally, or they can put it up into your vagina, so you can have it, you can take it vaginally. Yeah, and so we started that, and we did Miso. I got 2 doses of it. One, I believe the first one I took vaginally, and the second one I had oral. I took it orally, and both of them started contractions. I think the first dose of Miso that I took, because I took it vaginally, I had to lay down for a little bit, but after about 30 minutes or so, once my body absorbed it, I was allowed to walk around. So it was nice. Both times I was able to move and everything, and even still, like, being monitored and with the IV, I was able to get up and move and unhook myself from the machine that was monitoring her heart rate and was it on one? No, the machine was monitoring her heart rate and everything, and I don't think I wore a blood pressure cuff. I think they put it on and took it off. I don't know. I don't remember. But still, like, all those things are being monitored, and they all were looking good. Baby looked great. My blood pressure had gone down from the 140s down to the low 130s. And on that day, I believe it was actually 130 over 80. So gone down, still elevated, but it had gone down. My in-laws had come because they were expecting baby girl to be here, and she was head down, and everything, seemed like it was just waiting for my body to just respond and get going. Just in general about me, my body is very sensitive to everything, medicine, all things, and my body is kind of like an all or nothing. So I thought that if I got induced, it wouldn't be too long. And also, for some reason too, I think back when baby was breached, when I was 35 weeks, I just had a feeling, and I just kind of I don't know, I just had strong feelings I'm gonna end up getting a C-section. And I kind of was starting to tell my OB that, because I was I'm just tired and want this baby to come. But she was like, yeah, no, you don't want a C-section, trust me. And I was like, no, you don't understand. But anyway, just during this point, they were doing everything that they could for me to have the baby vaginally and for me to not have to get surgery done. And so we did the 2 doses of Miso. It worked in ripening my cervix, but each time I got checked, it was too high for them to really, they really had to kind of dig in there to feel my cervix and to feel the baby even. And so she wasn't really settling into my pelvis, and she wasn't engaging well enough to where labor could really start. And so the medicine was kind of doing its job and getting labor started, but things weren't engaging or working. And so I ended up then taking Pitocin Saturday night, and they did it through the IV, of course, and I believe that the highest dose that they had me get to was 4, and I did that for 1 hour, and they stopped because what they want you to do is they want you to have contractions at a certain amount of time, with space in between it. And so with both the Miso and the Pitocin, there were times where they had to adjust when either I would take it or how much they would give me, because my body would just start laboring intensely, and they just didn't want me to labor that intensely. So they decreased the amount of Pitocin that night, and I was, they lowered it. It wasn't too bad, but definitely the labor was kind of okay, this is a lot. So Sunday, I have here that blood pressure was under control, and they felt really good about that. My cervix was about 1 centimeter dilated, 50% effaced. It was high and not fully soft. So then this time I was given 2 more doses of Miso, this time 2 pills, and I took them orally. And then at this night I was given Pitocin, and they increased the amount of Pitocin every 30 minutes, and I was out of 4 for an hour, and then I couldn't sleep after 5:30 a.m. that night. And so there's a few things about this day that I'm starting to notice, and kind of what led to what's going to happen next. I was hoping that they were communicating with my OB this entire time. They had other doctors that she had worked with in the office there, but I wanted my doctor to know what was going on, and I wanted her to kind of like be in control of what treatment they were giving me. And I later on found out the next day, Monday, that they had not been communicating with her, even though she wanted to know what was happening. And so that was very frustrating for me, even though, they were doing kind of like their best. And I enjoyed the nurses during the day and the first nurse I had at night. The nurse that I had Sunday night, I didn't really like. And the reason was because right when I was starting the Pitocin, and as they were increasing, there was one point where my daughter's heart rate had dropped. And it dropped for a short amount of time, and it came back up. And I noticed it, and the nurse that came in and checked on me, and I'm sure she probably was watching and noticed it too. And I asked her about it, and she was just like, "Oh, that's normal. It's not a big deal. It just dropped for, I saw it. It dropped for a little bit, and it came back up. You'll be okay." But just the way she responded did not reassure me at all. And it just seemed like even though I'm sure she was paying attention, it didn't seem like she was. So that night, the contractions were really hard, and I was getting really tired, and I just couldn't sleep that night. And baby, I noticed as I was getting more and more of these medications, I just couldn't really, she wasn't moving and doing what she normally had done. And so I just was concerned and, wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And so, yeah, I didn't sleep after 5:30 that night or that day. So I was up watching Deja Vu. And I just remember I was so relieved when they took me off Pitocin that morning. I was so happy. I was praying and hoping when they checked me that I would be dilating some more, and that, I could labor naturally for the rest of the time, and we could have this baby on Monday. My in-laws had left that Sunday night because they had to get back home. Monday morning, I get checked, and I was 1 centimeter dilated and 90% effaced. Blood pressure was still good. I was exhausted. So they gave me the option then to go home. And they gave me that option because my blood pressure had settled back down. My mom, because she knows and has had her own experience with blood pressure, she was just very watchful of me. And we told them that we had blood pressure monitors at home, cuffs and everything. We had those at home, so they felt a little bit more comfortable too, letting me go home. My mom wasn't too happy because she still felt like my numbers weren't amazing, and kind of find out they weren't talking with my OB, and so the doctor's making the decision wasn't my doctor. And so I honestly believe that if my doctor was there, I probably would have had a C-section that day. But instead, they let me go home and just rest. And we just, kept up and made sure that my blood pressure was good and everything. And, just did what we knew to do at the time. And so Tuesday, I woke up and I just had a feeling that I just needed to go and see my doctor and talk with her. And so she immediately called me and told me to go. So me, my husband, and my mom go. And so also that Monday, they let me go home just for that night. And they told me to come back on Tuesday, because what I didn't tell you was in the midst of that whole weekend of me getting induced, the hospital was on divert, which means that they were full. So that meant that if you called, they would refer you to a different hospital to deliver. If you just showed up, they would have to take you because that's required. So they were on divert and they were full. And so I don't know if having me go home I'm sure having me go home, let there be space for someone else who is actually going to deliver and having signs of labor, deliver their baby and be able to go in. So I don't know. I'm sure that might have something to do with it. Either way, it was what it was, and it actually had more to do with, my birth story. But anyway, we went to Dr. Howell. I didn't return to labor and delivery. She didn't have me return. She did a non-stress test, I believe, and she checked my blood pressure. I don't have what it was specifically for this day, but it was not like, because she didn't have me return to labor and delivery, it was not high. And so, but it still wasn't like, because I mean, I've had like really low, or typically I have low blood pressure. And so what she did for me, because she had seen me for so long and knew kind of like my history, she gave me a small dose prescription of blood pressure medication, which is labetalol. And I believe it was 100 milligrams, and I was supposed to take it once a day. And just to let you know how small of a dose that is, the highest dose that people have taken of that is 800 milligrams 3 times a day. And so, yeah, like I've talked to other doctors about that, and it's like pissing in the wind. But she gave me that medication to basically help make sure that everything was gonna go well and time me over. And she basically started a game plan for this week. She told me, she's like, you're gonna go back to the acupuncturist and get acupuncture to help get you to go into labor and to help control your blood pressure along with this medication. And Thursday we're gonna do that, and then we'll see how things go from there. So I went back to the acupuncturist on Wednesday, and I was happy about that because from the time, I believe Monday and Tuesday, I felt like I had to do kick counts with my baby because I just felt like things didn't feel normal from, you know, that point of being in the hospital. I was so swollen because, I mean, the whole time I was there, I was taking IV fluids. So of course I'm like getting like bigger and bigger because there's so much fluid in my body. And so I was swollen still, of course, and just, you know, not feeling the best. But doing that acupuncture was wonderful again. She went back to moving and kicking how she normally did. And yeah, it was just really great. And I started to feel change, but it wasn't like real contractions. So either way, I went home and rested the rest of that day. Thursday, I went back and was called in by the doctor. I did a non-stress test and a blood pressure check, did well on both. And then we set up a plan for an induction on Saturday. And so my doctor had a serious like close-up talk to me, and she's like, now's the time to do whatever you want to do to try and get you to go into labor, because either way, she's like, this weekend you're going in and you're not coming out with a baby in your belly this time. You are going to have her, whether it is like through vaginal delivery or a C-section. So I was happy, and I was like, I'm all in, all for it. And so that night we went to the store and bought a ton of raspberry leaf tea. I already asked her about evening primrose oil. She said, no, don't do it. She's like, that, it causes issues and all kinds of stuff, and it's not good for the baby. So she said, don't do that. I got a yoga ball, and she also said too, or told me before, to help prep for breastfeeding, and also something that can help you go into labor is to pump. And so I did that ad nauseum the next 2 days. I drank multiple cups of raspberry leaf tea. I made sure to make it right and everything. And then at night, I would spend at least 20 minutes bouncing on the yoga ball and pumping like crazy. And so, and I also set up another acupuncturist appointment for Saturday morning because I was going to go into labor and delivery Saturday evening. And so I set it for the morning to kind of get in another, like, you know, we're going to do this and going to get me to go into labor naturally. Like, we're going to have this baby. And so that was Thursday night and then Friday night. And this is where this ends right here because my water broke. And that is all I will tell you at this point. I'm sorry to leave it on this cliffhanger right here, but that goes into my birth story, and that video will be up next week. So make sure you guys tune in to watch that, and I'll have it also up here in the cards. Yeah, that's the next part that happens. So I know that this was a lot. I think now looking back at it, and had someone told me what was going to happen, if they told me that, I probably would have stressed out more, but I feel like I handled it like a champ. I just didn't, you know, pregnancy and giving birth is not, I feel like easy just isn't a word to describe it. Some people have a way smoother time with it and don't really go through a lot of experiences that can really, like, you know, cause, I don't want to say trauma, but that can really like affect them. And some people go through way worse and way more intense, and even to the point where some people lose their children at the end. And so for me, my main thing was I just want to make sure she's healthy and I'm healthy and that we're going to make it through. And everything that happens through each of those stages, I felt cared for and protected and heard. And so in the times that I didn't feel like that by certain people, there was others that were around me that were advocating for me. I mean, I don't know how many times my husband or my mom would speak up and say things and kind of like let people know that like I was being watched and cared for and taken care of. And so for those of you who are pregnant, I'm very intentional when I say that I'm praying for you and I'm praying for the best, because, you know, it's just pregnancy and birth, I really feel like are something that is very close to God and that he cares a lot about, and that he is really intimately involved in. And so because of that, I just pray intentionally for people in that way, because it's just, it's a life-changing experience. And I don't know if there was a way I could have explained to myself prior to having a baby how much it would change me. And so, like, just to say, like, these are the highlights and the points of it. I would say the main emotion I was feeling was tired and ready to have the baby, which is typical. There are good days, there are bad days. And I was taken care of and safe the entire time. Even when certain things seemed to arise and kind of be a threat to my health and everything, they ended up not being able to do anything to me, and they ended up being things that were easily monitored and controlled and taken care of, because it could have been a lot worse and it could have been so horrible. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know, have you had your own children? Have you adopted? Do you not want kids because of this? I mean, you know, everyone has their own path and their way to go in life. So I'm just here to provide information. You make your own conclusions from that. Either way, let me know all that down in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to talk to you guys there. Again, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Much love to you guys, and I will be back with you very soon to let you know about the birth of my sweet and beautiful daughter. Okay, much love. Bye. Oh, forgot. I'm not pregnant, so I don't have a belly, but here is me being pregnant, and you can see how big I was. This was at the very end. I shot this video on Thursday, either Thursday or that Friday before my water broke. So you guys are getting to see what I looked like. I was, oof, especially with all the IV fluid. I was big, but yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy that. Much love. Bye.